First, Sunil Gavaskar joins us. Mr. Gavaskar, do you believe that the Delhi test match should have taken place in the first place, given the air pollution in the national capital region?
I didn't know what the situation was. Look, the scheduling that is done a couple of months earlier. So at that stage, if there was awareness of what the pollution levels were likely to be, then maybe it should not have been done. But if at that particular time when the scheduling was done and the pollution information about pollution levels wasn't there, then I don't think anybody should be blamed for that.
But at the same time, Indian cricketers seem to be okay. Sri Lankan cricketers were complaining. Is it fair, though, to suggest that, look, Sri Lanka's cricketers should not be feeling tired if our cricketers can go ahead and play? If our cricketers can do something, why can't their cricketers play as well?
Well, so what happens in England? What happens in New Zealand when our boys go there? In extremely cold conditions, sometimes we wear two or three jumpers, while English and New Zealand cricketers maybe in short sleeves because they're used to the conditions over there. So do you therefore say that the Indian boys or the Pakistani boys or the Sri Lankan boys playing in cold conditions are making an unnecessary stand? Look, if the Sri Lankans felt that it was difficult for them to breathe, I think their health is also important. And yes, I think the Indians, as Indians, we might be used to a little more polluted environment. The Sri Lankans are not. They live on an island, and the air over there is much clearer. And therefore, if they felt that it was something that was affecting them personally, not just their cricket, affecting them personally, I think they had every right to wear masks.
All right. Well, we're going to come back to Sunil Gavaskar in a while, but I just want to introduce the rest of my panel. Charu Sharma with me, Professor D.K. Arvind, who's a professor in the School of Informatics at the University of Edinburgh. He's been studying the pollution levels in the National Capital Region extensively with us as well. Amrit Mathur, former BCCI administrator, and Ashish Khaitan of the Aam Aadmi Party. Ashish, let me come to you first. The National Green Tribunal had some harsh questions for you. One of the things they wanted to know is, why is this match happening at all? What did you do to dissuade the BCCI from holding this match? How would you respond?
I find the remarks of NGT a little unfortunate. One, the government of Delhi has absolutely no say in scheduling of matches. We are not asked, we are not approached for any permission or any clearance or any NOC. Having said that, pollution is a major challenge, not just for Delhi, but for the entire northern belt, starting from Punjab and stretching across to Uttar Pradesh. At least 7 or 8 cities are having air quality far worse.
Let's talk about Delhi.
Than Delhi.
Let's not pass the buck. All of it is horrible, Ashish. We know that. But why don't we talk about Delhi for a moment? Why pass the buck? We know it's bad, it's terrible, but let's talk about Delhi. Right? Why have you not submitted your action plan? That's another question which was asked of you. Take one step tell us one step taken in the last 4 days to combat pollution. That's another question which was asked to you. No answers.
The remark was extremely unfortunate because the graded action response is in place. It is a 2013 Supreme Court approved plan. The Delhi government is doing everything it can within its remit to control air pollution. The PWD department is sprinkling water on all the roads. We are enforcing dust control measures wherever
and yet we won't have odd even
construction is happening
with two-wheelers. That still won't happen.
Yeah, the problem, Vishnu, we have to understand that we were the first government which came out with an odd-even plan. In fact, we are the only government that is not shy of taking bold measures.
But then you insist you won't have two-wheelers off the roads. Two-wheelers will still be there.
NGT wanted no exemptions, which is we want to exempt the women drivers and we want to exempt the two-wheelers. Because if we don't exempt women and two-wheelers, the city of Delhi will come to a grinding halt.
So then let's forget about this as a move.
That was not approved by NGT, and that's why we don't have a
right. So that therein lies the problem. You can't do something as basic as full odd even. It doesn't work. It's worked only partly in the past. some encouraging signs, not enough. Well, we're going to move on. I also want to bring in Charu Sharma at this stage. Charu, that's the reality as far as the politics of pollution in the national capital are concerned. But what about the cricketers on the field? Do you believe the Sri Lankan cricketers were justified in you know, I mean, saying that, look, we just can't play like this? Because there are those who believe that, you know, was it really that bad? We live over here, we breathe it every day, no one likes it. But weren't they getting a bit extreme? I disagree with that point of view, just asking the question.
No, I really don't think we can put it down to gamesmanship at all, because, I mean, there are many other ways of getting out of a battle. You know, the conditions must have been very severe. And do remember that we are, as Sunny also said, we are used to it, as we all know. We are far more used to the conditions here than the Sri Lankans. They have a wonderful island, virtually unpolluted. And it makes sense that they would suffer in the kind of weather that we had or the kind of pollutants we had in the air in New Delhi. But I just want to add that on one hand, yes, they had every right to, should we say, show their protest or their discomfort. Remember, the coach said they were retching inside the dressing room and what have you. So that there are definite signs that they were disturbed or very uncomfortable because of the air. But let's not, you know, bring this down to a simple problem. It's a very complicated problem. It's been there for years. It's getting worse, of course, by the year. But I mean, I would hate to try and travel to North India in the winter because of a mix of conditions, not just the pollutants in the air, but, you know, the crop burning, for instance, which has caught everybody's fancy now. It's dust laden almost through the year, the alluvial soil there in North India. So it's a combination of many problems, no easy solution. But let's not bear down on sport, because, I mean, it's impossible to really know in a span of 3 or 4 days in a certain month what the weather is going to be like. So let's not complain about scheduling. But, you know, Sri Lanka have the strength, should we say, to even travel to Pakistan, where they went through such a major problem some years ago. So they're not afraid of battle, yes. And let's not, you know, blame them for that.
Well, Charu, the cynic would say that Sri Lanka faced a challenge to their lives in Pakistan, and they're facing a challenge to their lives with the air that they're breathing over here. And in fact, that's not really an exaggeration. It is a fact. But I'll come to that in a moment. Zulfiq Farzan, senior executive news producer at News First Sri Lanka, joins us. Zulfiq, there could be a very real prospect tomorrow if, when Sri Lanka at some stage goes out to field, that some Sri Lankan cricketers may decide that they don't want to field. Could there be, 5, 6 Sri Lankan players on the ground with, you know, I mean, a motley crew of extras taken up from people in the area to play for Sri Lanka? Is this a real possibility? Zulfiq, can you hear me? All right, we'll get back to Zulfiq in a while. Mr. Mathur, let me put that question to you. Is that a possibility? I mean, we could have an unprecedented situation in Test cricket?
Well, I wouldn't like to speculate on what the Sri Lankans will do tomorrow. But in a way, it's a matter of playing conditions. This is unprecedented. It hasn't happened anywhere in the past. So the umpires don't know what to do. The match referee doesn't know what to do. So you go by some kind of gut feel, instinct, and decide either to carry on play or to suspend it, abandon it. And something similar happened in England this year, where during a county game, somebody, an arrow came into the ground from somewhere. It was seen as a terror act. Again, nobody knew how to react.
Yep.
They suspended play. As a result, Middlesex, the county champions, got relegated. They lost points. They lost sponsorship. All kinds of things happened. So in a situation like this, you really don't know.
But it's happened over here.
But listen,
November 2016.
Listen, the fact is that
there was a Ranji game, it was called. No?
Yeah, that was
because of smog.
Yeah, that
over
was
here in Delhi, right?
Yeah, that was abandoned last year
between Bengal and Gujarat.
Yeah, 2 matches. Also, this year there was uncertainty about the marathon, the Airtel marathon.
That still went ahead.
Also, with the Under-17 World Cup, because there was a serious issue about the air quality, and they seriously thought about moving matches out of Delhi. So I think apart from the playing conditions aspect, there's also a scheduling aspect. Like you mentioned last year, there was a decision to abandon games.
So could this be seen as a Sri Lankan mistake? Because every year it's terrible.
Listen, I don't think the Sri Lankans did anything wrong, and we should not treat it as India versus Sri Lanka. They were not trying to. They were not trying to unsettle Virat. They were not trying to, get the match abandoned or to show India in a poor light. The fact is, players were in some kind of physical distress.
Yep.
They went to the umpire and said, "Listen, what do we do? We might have a situation where we might not have 11 people on the field."
Yeah,
that's all.
Zulfiq Farzan, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Zulfiq, what are you hearing? Is there likely to be a situation where Sri Lanka's cricketers tomorrow decide that all of them can't field? Or some of them can't field?
Well, it's really a speculation right now. What we've heard is that the Sri Lankan Cricket Board has actually made a request from BCCI as to why Delhi was actually selected for this match at a time when the pollution levels are extremely high. And according to WHO standards, it's extremely high. So the reason why Delhi was selected, the SLC has officially requested an explanation from BCCI. That is what we're getting from inside. However, on the other hand, it was actually interesting to see how the players were reacting to the conditions in New Delhi. One would say that the players could have walked off, abandoned the match, but the Sri Lankan cricketers actually decided, okay, we'll wear the mask, we'll see how it is, and then we'll come back and play. And that's how we saw today's play, where we saw actually Angela Matthews and Dinesh Chandimal scoring some centuries.
No, but fair enough. Professor D.K. Arvind, the bottom line is that these cricketers don't have a choice. Even if they have a choice, the chances are that they're going to try and fight it out. But we've also had a marathon over here. We've had more than 1,000 children participate in Delhi under 14 and under 16 trials at the Firoz Shah Kotla at the height of this air apocalypse. Is it at all safe for sports people, sportsmen, sportswomen and children to be out in these pollution levels?
Hello. That is a difficult question to answer, because the way people respond to air pollution very much depends on the personal circumstances. There are certain people who, for instance, suffer from asthma, and the effect of air pollution on them would be greater compared to others. And that's the basis of the Indo-UK research project that we are running in Delhi, which is looking at the effect of air pollution on young asthmatics and also on babies due to exposure during pregnancy. So it's not an easy question to answer, but it requires research to take place, and that is the kind of research we are undertaking. And the way we are doing it is to introduce some body-worn sensors which have been developed at the University of Edinburgh, so that you can measure the air pollution in the environment, but also what is the exposure at the personal level by wearing sensors on the body. So these can be worn as belts, or they can be worn as a sash, and then you can actually measure what the exposure is on the person. And also other sensors which can measure the changes in your breathing rate and flow. So if you suffer from asthma, for instance, then you'd have a different response compared to otherwise. So this requires research, and that's what we are conducting in Delhi over the next 4 years.
And how soon before we see your study? Because this is monumental, because there are other reports which have come out. The Center for Science and Environment, quoting several other reports, says that 61% of Indians die as a result of non-communicable diseases, of which air pollution is a major factor. Assuming that that is entirely correct, there needs to be further analysis. So if you have devices which can actually measure the impact on people, when will we have quantifiable data to help us understand, just what's going wrong?
Okay, let me put this in perspective. It took 30 years from the 1950s, when people first realized the effect of cigarettes on human health, the cause of lung cancer and cardiovascular disease. It took 30 years from 1950 to 1980 before you have solid evidence to back this up. So we are just starting the study, so you can't expect something overnight. So this would take a cohort study at least 4 years before we have results that we can share.
Yeah.
So this is not something that we take lightly, but you need
Doctor,
to be able to come up with results based on sound scientific basis.
Professor, I can't agree more with you. It's sad though that we just don't have these results, and we've been breathing this air now in Delhi for so long, in the national capital region for so long. Charu, we're running out of time. Just looking ahead at this game, I mean, how do you see it actually going if you've got sick cricketers who are at one level affected mentally also, at what all they have gone through, and they're breathing this air, they aren't sure whether they want to play, and yet they want to serve their country. You know, I mean, it's unprecedented. We've never really seen anything like this, certainly not in international cricket. I mean, can you tell us where things would potentially stand for Sri Lankan cricket?
Well, and sadly, Vishnu, it's not just about Sri Lankan cricket in this one test match. You know, if things don't improve, they'll only get a lot worse. And winter cricket in the north, the entire north may suffer, certainly international cricket, where people coming in from countries that are not polluted. So it's a huge problem potentially in the future as well. But the Sri Lankan team in this test match, I think they will have the gumption to continue to carry on with just a couple of days left now. And I'm sure they'll have a team chat and say that, you know, it's very uncomfortable, but we've got to finish. I mean, they are sports persons after all. And, you know, generally, all of us sports persons are known to sort of, you know, push it just that extra mile. So I've no doubt that they'll come out, they'll finish the test match. But the attention that this test match has gathered because of the Sri Lankan team's discomfort, I think hopefully will drive once again all the authorities concerned to ensure that Delhi and most of North India does do something very definitive to improve the quality of the air. But, you know, it's wrong to say that the Indians are more used to it. I think you're used to it, but it's no less lethal for Indians as well. A prolonged exposure, as was explained earlier, could be, you know, quite fatal. So it's a very difficult problem to deal with. No easy solution. Let's not have knee-jerk solutions as well. But about the test match, the Sri Lankans will come out. And I think at least 11 of them will agree to play, and we will have a result as well. So that's how I see the test match. But of course, the problem is a lot bigger than just one match.
Mr. Mathur, going forward, is it time that we seriously look at not having Delhi as a test venue in winter?
I think the scheduling could have been smarter. As it is during winter, the BCCI doesn't hold Ranji Trophy in January or so because of the fog, because of the dew. So similarly, if we know that the air quality is going to be like this, I think it will be proper not to hold international games during this period.
All right. Okay, one final question to you, Zulfiq. You know, in speaking to Sri Lankan cricketers or, you know, I mean, accessing your sources on what exactly is going on in the Sri Lankan dressing room, what exactly are they saying? What exactly is their frame of mind presently?
Well, right now from what we're getting from the Sri Lankan dressing room is they've had a meeting and skipper Dinesh Chandimal has been pressing on about the situation, and they've been actually discussing about the health condition of a couple of the players whom, according to the team physio, they had been vomiting after the match, and like players like Gambhir, who felt really uncomfortable while bowling between overs, and others had to step in. So they'll be really looking into the health condition of all these players. And like Mr. Sharma said before, this is a whole lot bigger than just one match. Because if this situation continues, it is highly unlikely that anyone else would want to play in such conditions. But we hope that the Sri Lankan will come out, all 11 of them, and take the situation into consideration and play the full match. So that's what we are hoping for.
All right, Zulfiq, thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to thank all of our panelists as well. But I think the point that Zulfiq makes is something that perhaps everybody will now notice, that there's been a precedent now of players in India, in an Indian field, falling sick. It's happened in the national capital. It could easily happen in another part of North India as well, because the air pollution, as Ashish was mentioning earlier on, is actually terrible across this entire belt. The winters are when we play most of our cricket. What's going to actually happen to our matches if tomorrow England says they don't want to play in some other city, maybe Lucknow, maybe Chandigarh? What happens if Australia comes and says that they don't want to play either? What happens to Indian cricket then? Is this going to be a small part of the wake-up that we all need in this country? Thanks very much for being with us.